Hi everyone, I'm James DeBono and I'm a product design engineer. In this video, I want to make some predictions and forecasts about the future of technology. It's like Tom Scott's 10-year prediction video, but 8 years because I like 8. These are just my guesses. Some of them might be wrong, some of them might be obvious, and some of them might just be optimistic. Only time will tell. So let's get into it. Let's start with artificial intelligence. It's really hard to tell how fast things are going to progress with artificial intelligence or how far we've already come. I think AI will find its way into most hardware and software that we interact with by 2032. I predict that we're at the beginning of the next technological revolution and we're going to see huge advancements fueled by AI over the next 8 years. I think we'll likely see an artificial general intelligence before 2032. We'll need to seriously reconsider universal basic income, or UBI, as artificial intelligence will force us to keep pushing for things that we're able to do as humans, and it will become increasingly harder for people to keep up. Wage disparity will keep growing, and I think there'll be a big I told you moment for Andrew Yang. The good news is that AI assistants will become common and verbal, and they'll be helping us out with lots of everyday tasks. Hopefully we'll start to see more AI characters in games as well, which will make unique experiences for each person. Consumer technology. By the end of this year, the EU regulation for the USB-C common charger will come into effect. I believe by 2032, USB-C will be powering and connecting most of our hardware devices. I think internal power supplies will become less common as well, as it's much easier to replace an external USB-C power supply, and it means you don't need to throw out a device when the power supply stops working. By 2032, I think we'll start to see the beginnings of the next iteration of USB-C connectors, or we might see a bigger brother to USB-C for more heavy-duty applications. The EU is also set to force smartphone manufacturers to make their batteries user-replaceable, just like the old days. For now, the European market is enough leverage to convince these big companies to do that, but I wonder if in the future that will be enough, and it might be that other countries like Australia or the US or China might have to consider bringing similar regulations so that we keep seeing these benefits coming to the consumers and also reducing e-waste. For now, the European market is big enough to convince big companies like Apple to change their USB-C chargers and change their devices to fit these regulations. But in the future, that might not be enough, and we might need other countries like Australia or the US or even China to also change their regulations to keep these big companies doing what's best for the consumer and to reduce e-waste. Speaking of Apple, what will they do next? It's usually not too hard to guess. I would predict that in the next 8 years we'll probably see a folding phone from Apple, and we might start to see them getting rid of the notch and replacing it with cameras and sensors that are underneath the display that you can't see. By 2032 we might be far less focused on smartphones anyway, as we'll start to use more wearables and we might even start to use brain-computer interfaces. I think products like Neuralink will still be pretty niche and they'll be limited to medical applications. Sustainability. Last year I had the pleasure of visiting the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, otherwise known as ITER, just a few hours outside of Marseille in France. It's the largest fusion reactor in the world, but it's still under construction. It was very impressive to see, but I will say that there were some things that made me think that it might take a bit longer than they're saying. It seemed clear that there are more delays than they were anticipating. I do think that by 2025 we probably will have seen the first plasma. Hopefully by 2032 they'll be getting close to full fusion. I'm not as optimistic about nuclear fission. I think that we'll start to see some small modular reactors being developed. I think the large-scale nuclear reactors that people are hoping for are just something that's far too expensive and takes too long to build these days. I hope that by 2032 we'll start to see some countries implementing some form of carbon capture, where we're actually reversing climate change by taking carbon out of the atmosphere and turning it back into solid carbon. I think the biggest change will come from battery technology. We've been on the cusp of a new battery technology for decades now, seemingly. But I think that by 2032 we'll have started to use more solid-state batteries. Hopefully they become more economically viable and they bring big improvements in energy density for things like electric vehicles and energy storage in the grid. I think large battery plants like the Hornsdale Power Reserve in South Australia will become more common. We're already starting to see more of them popping up, and they'll take a lot of pressure off the grid and allow us to make better use of solar and wind energy. By 2032, I think at least in Europe they will have banned the sale of fossil fuel powered cars, and probably some other countries will start to follow as well. I think self-driving cars will become a lot more common, but we might not be owning them ourselves. They'll probably be used to supplement public transport and private transport as well with companies like Uber. In 2032, I think that you'll be able to buy lab-grown meat from the supermarket, probably at a slightly higher cost than regular meat. Last year, I also had the chance to visit CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. That's the site of the Large Hadron Collider. For now, it seems like they're doing a lot of maintenance type stuff, but I do think that we'll probably see some big breakthroughs in the next 8 years, still coming from the Large Hadron Collider. Maybe some discoveries about quantum gravity or neutrinos or something, but I don't pretend to know that much about particle physics. By 2027, we should see a feasibility study for the FCC, which is the Future Circular Collider, which is going to be 90 to 100 kilometers in diameter, which is like triple the size of the Large Hadron Collider. By the end of this year, we should have seen Artemis 2, which is a manned test flight of the Orion spacecraft, which is going to take people in an orbit around the moon and back to the Earth. By 2025, Artemis 3 is going to take a crew of 4 people who are going to actually land on the moon and spend 6.5 days there. That's right, people are actually going to walk on the moon again, and I can't wait to see that on video. I wonder if the flat earthers will still think that it's CGI. Now, this is all stuff that's on NASA's website, but I do think that it will happen, but there might be some slight delays, maybe up to a year or two. By 2029, 2 more manned missions to the moon will have happened, and they're actually going to build a space station on the moon. I do think that this is going to happen, but I do think that there probably will be some delays. Music technology. There's this trend in music technology where there's a group of people who always seem to think that the way things were done 25 years ago is the best way. When Bob Dylan first went on stage with an electric guitar, people booed him because at that time, real music was made with acoustic instruments. Today, electric guitars are acceptable, but digital is the new enemy. Real music is made with tube amplifiers and reel-to-reel tape recorders and is pressed on vinyl. The reality is that most good music these days is recorded digitally with powerful computer software, and the quality is much higher than it ever was with analog. In 2032, the new enemy will be AI. AI is going to be used to write melodies, write lyrics, emulate instruments, and even mix and master recordings. The thing is, people will still make music, and people will still be interested in music made by people, because people relate to the musician just as much as they do to the music. But now, artists will have AI tools which will allow them to make music much more easily and efficiently. I think audio over IP and audio over Ethernet is going to grow in popularity. It's probably going to make it into home studios and replace USB audio interfaces. Perhaps by 2032 there'll even be a wireless version of audio over IP that allows us to do wireless low latency audio on a network. VR. The Apple Vision Pro is about to launch, but I think soon after that we'll see some other big headsets come from competitors like Valve, and they're probably going to have better specs at a much lower price, but that's just the way tech goes. The Vision Pro will bring a lot more attention to VR and AR. I don't think they'll put much focus into games, and if there are any games, they'll probably be exclusive. I think the Vision Pro is going to crack the productivity market, which is going to bring commercial revenue into the VR space. VR using realistic avatars with face tracking, I think will become more common for things like online meetings. I do think VR will become more popular, but still a little bit of a niche. Not everybody's going to have a headset, but maybe 1 in 5. I think internet speeds are going to keep increasing up until the point where we have fiber to the premises at each place. I don't think we're ever going to see super low latency across the world. Like if you wanted to do a real-time jam session with other musicians on the other side of the world, or playing video games with low ping, I think that's just a physical limitation of the speed of light. If you had a fiber optic cable going through the center of the Earth, the time it takes for light to travel along that distance is still 42 milliseconds, so you're never going to get real time. I think that's just the reality. By 2032 we probably should have a 6G network as well, but I think that's pretty obvious and it's going to be faster, of course. I think ARM is going to lose market share. RISC-V seems to be getting a lot of attention these days, especially in China, with trade deals being blocked with the US. I think a lot more laptops and desktops are going to start using RISC processors, and I think that finally Windows on ARM or Windows on RISC will be an actual thing. Although by that time, Windows might not be the top dog of the operating systems. We might be looking at a future of Chrome OS or something like that. I think we'll start to see quantum computing being used in industrial applications such as security or disease prevention, but it will still be some time until it's available to consumers. So by 2032, I don't think we'll have quantum computers yet. Like Tom Scott said in his video, I think that short form video is going to keep growing, but long form video seems to be the place where people are making revenue. It might be that our attention spans keep getting reduced, and it might be that YouTube isn't the place where I post a response to this video. But I think for now, YouTube still seems to be the most logical option for most creators. I think X, formerly known as Twitter, is probably going to keep sliding into obscurity, find its place with MySpace in social media limbo. Misinformation is going to continue being one of the biggest issues that our species faces. We're going to need to find concrete solutions to that. I think social media platforms are going to have to start using ID verification with third-party security companies like PostIdent. So that's it for my predictions. A little update on myself if you're curious. Over the last few months I got back together with my old band called The Tropicals. Those guys recorded a 4-track EP while I was still in Berlin, but once I got back we decided to get everybody together for a gig. We played at a bar in Melbourne, which was a lot of fun. Really cool to get back into that. And we launched the EP, so you can find that in the links in the description. Currently I'm still trying to sort out software licenses so that I can continue working on my design projects, but hopefully I'll have that sorted out soon. Now to make some predictions for myself for the next 8 years. Firstly, I want to try to get to 100,000 subscribers in the next 2 years or less. Also, I want to start my own company so that I can start selling my own products that I'm working on in my spare time. So if you want to help me out with my goals, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys also achieve your goals for the next 8 years. Let me know what you think about my predictions. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What did I forget to mention? Let me know in the comments below. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Ban the sale of fossil fuel powered. They'll probably. Firstly, I want to try to get to 100,000 subscribers. That was horrible.